If you've been following my channel, you'll probably be aware that I'm a big supporter of OPNSense and Zenarmor and the great protection you get from these products, such as the real-time threat and malware filtering, and not to forget the ad and the dodgy domain blocking features. You get used to these features pretty quickly to a point where you feel vulnerable or almost naked when you're without them. For example, when you're connected to a mobile network or a friend's Wi-Fi network, and all those annoying ads and trackers come to life again. Today we're going to solve this problem. I'm going to show you how to set up ZeroTier on OpenSense and how you can route all your internet traffic via ZeroTier to your OpenSense firewall running Zenarmor, so that you can benefit from the protection offered no matter what network you are connected to. Let's get started. Before we launch into this video, if you don't know what the Zenarmor next generation firewall is, I've linked some videos in the description and above. Please go check those out first. So what is ZeroTier? ZeroTier describes their product as a combination of a VPN and a sd-wan that allows anyone to connect to any network securely from any device from anywhere, and you can do this in a matter of minutes. Basically, think of it as if you're connecting to a layer 2 Ethernet switch in the cloud. Obviously, there's a lot more complexity to the process running in the background. However, that's outside of the scope of this video, and we're going to primarily focus on how we can utilize ZeroTier to get to our OpenSense firewall so that we can route the traffic via Zenarmor to benefit from its protection on our mobile devices while we are away from home or the office. Okay, so to start with this installation, you first of all going to have to update your OpenSense firewall. It's pretty simple. You're going to come across to firmware, and inside there you're just going to click check for updates. If there are any updates, it's going to take a couple of minutes for them to install. And then once you've done that, you're going to head over to your plugins and you're going to look for OS ZeroTier. I've installed that already. Very simple to install it. You just click the little install button. And then I also have my Zenarmor plugins installed as well, which I've done and I've showed you guys in a previous video. Then the next step is you're going to have to head over to ZeroTier's website and you're going to have to create an account for yourself. And then once you've done that, you can log in and you'll have a very similar looking page to what I have over here. We're then going to go and create a network, and then it's going to take us into the settings page for that particular network. So in this case, I'm just going to give it a name that I recognize. I'm going to call it lab, and I'm just going to call it a lab network. And then with your access control, it's advised to keep this as private. So what private does is it will force you to authorize members that want to join this network. If you had it public, then anybody with a network ID could become a member of your network, which is obviously not a desirable thing to have. The managed routes we can leave for now. And then if we scroll down to our IPv4 auto assign settings, I'm just going to change this to a /24 IP address. I think that with a /16, it's just a waste of address space. So we can rather use a /24 for this purpose. It provides us with more than enough host IP addresses. All the other settings we're going to leave as default for now. So as you can see, we don't have any devices currently joined onto our network. So let's quickly connect our firewall up to the network. So we'll just copy this ID that it uses. And we're going to head back to our OpenSense firewall. And inside there, we're going to come down to VPNs and to ZeroTier and into settings. And then the first thing that we need to do is enable ZeroTier and click apply. And then once we've enabled ZeroTier, we're going to click on the network tab and we're going to then add a network. And this is where we're going to copy that ID into. And then we're just going to give it a name. So we can just call it lab and click save. We're then going to come over to the little checkbox on the side to enable ZeroTier. And then we've done the configuration from OpenSense side for now. We're then going to head back to our ZeroTier dashboard. And we're quickly going to just refresh the page. And then if you scroll down to the bottom where our members device list is, you'll see that this device is waiting to be authorized or authenticated. So you'll just click on the little checkbox over there, and then it'll authenticate the device. And inside here, we can give it a name and a description. So we'll just call it OpenSense. And then for this firewall, I want to give it a static IP address. So in this case, we're going to call it 10.147.18.254. The reason that we want to do this is because we need to set up a routing rule to tell ZeroTier to route all of our internet traffic through this particular firewall, which I'll show you how to set up shortly. So we need to make sure that this IP address is static and that it's not dynamic like they've given us over here. So you'll click add. And then we can then remove the IP address that was provided by just clicking on this little bin icon. Now we only have one IP address configured. Then the final step that we need to do in the ZeroTier dashboard, we just need to head back to the top again. And yeah, we need to add a default route to point all of our internet traffic through the firewall that we just set up. So we would then use the standard default route. And we're going to tell it to go via the firewall, which was 10.147.18.254. And we're going to submit. And then you can see we have that default route set up. Okay, so once we've done with that configuration, we're then going to go back into our firewall just to show you that this network has been connected successfully. If you click on the little info icon, you'll see over here that it says OK private, and it's given the IP address to this particular interface on the firewall with the IP address of that 254 that we set up in the dashboard. So we know that the firewall is now 100% connected to the ZeroTier network. We're then going to go over to interfaces and to assignments. And in here, you'll see there's a new interface that hasn't been assigned yet, and it's got this ZT address with all these numbers and so forth behind it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to give it a description. We'll call it ZeroTier, and we'll just add it. And then we'll click on save. So now we've successfully added that ZeroTier interface. So now that that interface has been added, you'll see it'll be included under the interfaces as ZeroTier. And we now need to go and enable it. So you'll click on ZeroTier, and then you will say enable interface and prevent interface removal. And then what we're going to do is with the IPv4 configuration, we're going to set it up as a static IPv4 network. We're then going to come down to the MTU settings, and we're going to set this to 1500. The reason that we need to do this is because later in the configuration, when we include this interface into Zenarmor for inspection, you're going to have an error that will pop up if you don't set the MTU, because Zenarmor does not support jumbo frames currently. So you need to force your maximum transmission unit to be 1500 in order for this to work. That's a problem that I ran into and that I had to get sorted out in my setup. You're then going to scroll down to the bottom of the page, and here there's an option to configure a static IPv4 IP address. So all we're going to do is we're basically going to then just copy the IP address that we assigned in our ZeroTier dashboard to the firewall. I'm going to copy it in here, and we're going to change it to a /24 network. And the upstream gateway we can just leave as auto detect. and then you're going to click save. And then once you've clicked save, you then need to apply the changes. So we'll click apply changes. And now you'll have a configured interface for ZeroTier. Okay, so once the interface has been configured, then we need to set up some firewall rules. So to do this, we're going to go to Firewall, and we're going to go to Rules, and then we're going to come down to ZeroTier. And as you can see, there's no rules configured for this ZeroTier interface yet. So by default, OpenSense will block anything trying to go through that interface. So similar to how our LAN has been configured, or our LAN interface has been configured on OpenSense, we need to set up a rule to allow any traffic that comes from the ZeroTier network through the firewall. So to do this, we need to click on add, and our action we need to set up as pass, and we need to tell it that it needs to be coming in through the ZeroTier interface inward, and anything IPv4 and any protocol, and the source we can have as any as well, and the destination we can have as any. And then we simply just going to give it a description, so we can call it a default ZeroTier to any rule, and we're not going to change any advanced settings here, such as the source OS and so forth. And then we're going to click save. And once you've done that, you're going to apply the changes. And now we've allowed any traffic that originates from our ZeroTier network to pass through the firewall. The final step that we need to complete on our firewall is we need to now add that interface that we just created for ZeroTier into Zenarmor, so that Zenarmor can inspect the traffic going through the interface. So in order to do that, we're going to go to Zenarmor and into configuration. And then you'll see that you'll have this available interface here as ZeroTier. You'll simply click on it and you'll add it across. And you will then come to the bottom and say save changes. If you get any errors here that mentions anything about jumbo frames or not supporting jumbo frames, go back a few minutes to where we configured the interface for ZeroTier and make sure that your MTU is set to 1500. Currently, Zenarmor doesn't support jumbo frames, hence why it'll give you that error if you haven't configured that properly. So once it's configured, you'll refresh the page and you'll see that you now have ZeroTier protected by your Zenarmor. So that's all the configurations that we need to do on the firewall. The next steps is we need to look at now configuring our clients that are going to be using this network, such as our mobile devices or laptops or whatever we're going to be using. Okay, so to show you how to set this up using Android, you're firstly going to need to download the ZeroTier 1 application off of the Play Store. And then once it's been installed, it's a very simple process to add your network. You are going to just basically email your network ID that you have to yourself. So you have this number available over here. And then you are going to then click on the plus button at the top, and you're going to paste the ID in on that side. And then if you want all of your traffic from this device, from this phone, to route via ZeroTier, you need to select the route via ZeroTier option. This is an important step because if you don't do this, then it'll split your traffic between what is destined for ZeroTier and what's destined for the internet. So you won't, if you unselect this option, you won't have the benefit of using your firewall to filter your traffic. And then that other rule that we set up over here for the managed routes, it will then forward all traffic through 10.147.18.254, which is our OpenSense firewall running Zenarmor. So once you've done that, you'll click add. Then on the phone, you're going to just slide this button across. and then it's going to tell you that it's not an authorized network. However, if you look at our dashboard, you'll see now that the device has been added. So I can then authorize it by clicking on that. Now it's become authorized. So if you are on a Windows device, a similar process, you're going to download the ZeroTier application and you're going to install it. And then it's going to give you an icon on your taskbar once it's been successfully installed. And you're just going to say join network. And then you're going to put in your 16-digit network ID and you're going to say join. We then need to head back to our ZeroTier dashboard again and scroll down to our members. And you'll see now the Windows machine has been added. Once again, you're going to click on the auth button and we can give it some sort of a description. And that's how you add all of your devices. A similar principle will apply to Mac and iOS devices. On the Windows device, once you've connected to the network, you will see it'll give you more menu options. Then just to make sure that all your traffic is routed out the firewall, you just want to select this allow default router override option. Now all the traffic that originates from this device will route via your Zenarmor firewall. That's all that I have for today. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.